You can master about 80% of n8n by learning only these 18 nodes. If you're a beginner and then you started learning n8n, you get confused because n8n can be overwhelming. There are 400 plus core nodes, there are over 600 community nodes, and a ton of integrations and API connections. So as a beginner, you're thinking, how can I be able to learn all of these nodes so that I can be able to create AI automations and workflows in n8n? Well, the truth is, you don't. Because I have built hundreds of workflows and AI agents in n8n. There are a set of core nodes that you can be able to use and be able to create almost every other workflows. Don't worry, it is not going to get too technical. You don't have to come from a technical background. You don't have to have a software engineering degree or be a programmer. You can be able to go through this video and then you understand it. Just stay with me. So all of the nodes are going to be available in my free school community for you to be able to get access to it and use it. And also, I'm going to provide a free guide, like a cheat sheet, that is going to be able to help you to understand these nodes better. Stay with me and watch till the end, and I'll show you how you can get access to it. By the way, if this is your first time you're hearing about the term n8n, nodes, AI agent, if these are all buzzwords, I highly recommend you watch this video. So let's get started. Basically, before we talk about the first node, I want to talk about something very important. So whenever you're building workflows or automations in n8n, the very first thing that you should think about is called a trigger. So basically, a trigger is saying what is going to start this workflow that you've built. Let's say, for instance, you build a workflow that is going to be posting content to your social media. Trigger is saying what is going to happen for this AI automation or this workflow to be able to post this content on your social media. So that leads us to our very first node, which is the schedule trigger. So the schedule trigger is this guy right here. So it has a couple of configurations. So we have a trigger interval here, which is going to trigger the workflow based on whether you want to trigger it on days or hours or weeks or month or whatever the case may be. So let's just choose days. And then the trigger between days, if you say 2, for instance, it means every 2 days. And then at 7 a.m. or whatever time you want to put, and then you trigger at a particular minute. What this means is, if you've created an automation and then you put the schedule trigger as a trigger, the workflow is going to run at the particular time that you've just set. For instance, I've set this at 7 o'clock a.m. every 2 days. So every 2 days, it is going to run automatically. You don't have to click any button. It will run by itself. Simple. Let's say this is our workflow. We add a schedule trigger there. And then if we connect this schedule trigger to this workflow, it means when the time comes, it will run for itself automatically without we clicking any button. So, but there are two things I want you to know about schedule triggers. It is very much important for you to know that. The first thing is, for a schedule trigger to work automatically for itself without you clicking any button, you have to publish the workflow. So it should be live. The workflow should be live. So you click published, and then you publish the workflow. Basically, so if it is not published, it is not going to run for itself automatically. And then the second thing, you have to make sure your time zone is correct. So if you click on these 3 icons here, and then you go to settings, you'll see time zone. Currently, it is Europe, Berlin. So if that is your time zone, you're going to leave it as it is, or else you're going to choose your time zone. So there are a list of time zones here. Whatever the case may be, you're going to choose your time zone, and then you save it. So you don't have to forget those two things. So that is the schedule trigger. So our next node that we're going to talk about is the workflow trigger. So it is basically used to connect 2 workflows, a parent workflow and a child workflow. Let's say you have personal assistant agent here, and I also have my sub workflow here, which is this calendar AI agent, and I want them to communicate to each other. This personal assistant agent has tools, access to tools, and one of the tools is the calendar AI agent. So this entire workflow here is a tool to this parent agent. So how do you configure it? How do you connect it? Well, you connect it through this node, which is the workflow trigger node that I was talking about. And then there is it. And there are 3 options for the input data mode. It has this define using fields below, define using JSON example. My recommendation is for you to just choose accept all data, keeping things simple. And then you go to the parent workflow, and then you're going to add it as a tool. So you click on tools, you click on call n8n workflow tool, and then you describe the tool. Call this tool to take action on calendar. And then you're going to choose the workflow that you want to call. And in our own case here is the calendar agent, you choose it. So the configuration is O. Let me test it and then let me show you how it works basically. So let's say I am interacting with the personal assistant agent here. Let me execute workflow. But one thing I should mention is the sub agent, the calendar agent, should be activated for it to work properly. So let me just test this. So if I click execute workflow and then go to Telegram and then send a test like, say, can you check my calendar for next week Wednesday, which is March 4th? And then if I execute it, it is going to run. And it is going to call this calendar agent here. So it calls the calendar agent. And then it sends me a response. Say, okay, on Wednesday you have this. And what has actually happened is when I send an inquiry to this Telegram AI assistant, this ultimate assistant, you see it uses its calendar tool. If we check this calendar tool and we check executions, let's go to the latest execution. We can see that the query came through this node, which is the workflow trigger node. So if you double click it, you'll see the query that came in. Check calendar for March 4th, next week Wednesday. So from this query, this calendar agent took this query and then it think about the query using the OpenAI chat model, and then it uses one of its tools, which is get event, and then it gets the event and then it responds back to the personal assistant, which is the parent agent. So that is how it works. So all this happened because we have our workflow trigger here that receives the query. So it is very much important for you to understand this node, which is the workflow trigger node. So the next node that we're going to talk about are called app triggers. If you go to the nodes in n8n, almost every app in n8n, all of these apps, they have their own triggers. So we have for instance, if you go to Airtable here, you'll see it has a trigger. If you go to whatever app, let's say Active Campaign here, it has a trigger. So almost all of these apps have their own triggers. So we are not going to be able to talk about all of these apps, like hundreds of them, but we're going to talk about the two main ones that are often used or that I often use to create workflows. So one is the Gmail trigger and the other one is the Telegram trigger. So for the Gmail trigger, so to configure it, first of all, you have to connect your credentials. So I have created a comprehensive video on how to create Google account credential. This is for Gmail, this is for Google Drive, Google Sheets. You can watch this video at the top of my screen here. So you create your credential and then you choose the mode. Is it every minute, every hour, every day, every week you want the email to be checking your inbox for events? The only thing that you're going to change here is you either choose to get a simplified version or not. So let me just demonstrate it. So currently as it is, the simplified version is not checked. So if we click test, fetch test event, it is going to get this data, a lot of data from the Gmail inbox from one message, right? And then if we click simplify again and then fetch test event, we only have basic data. You see, very basic, just basic things. So it depends on your use case. There are certain instances wherein you just want a simplified version. Maybe you only want where the email comes from, the email address, the subject, and probably the ID. You understand? So if you want a simplified version of the email, then you can click simplify. So it depends on your use case. So that is the Gmail trigger. So now the Telegram trigger, you use the Telegram trigger if you want to create a system wherein you have to talk to it through Telegram. So you create your credential as well. You click this and create new credential. And then all you need is your access token. To get your access token, you have to go to Telegram and then you go to bot further and you type /new bot. So after you've clicked new bot, it is going to ask you to name it and also to choose a username. And after that, you're going to see something like this. Done. Congratulations on your new bot. And then all what you're going to do is click this link here that says use this token to access the API. You click it and then you go to Telegram and then you paste it under the access token and then you save. That is it. You've connected your Telegram credential. And then the trigger, you're going to leave it as it is on message. So a real use case, I have my personal assistant here. If you run the workflow through the Telegram trigger, so let me test. So if I click execute workflow now, the Telegram trigger is listening for event. Now, if I say hi or hello, it is going to run. So you see it has run. And then we've received the response saying, hello, how can I assist you today? And also a voice message is sent.
Hello, how can I assist you today?
Okay, nice. That is the Telegram trigger node. Now the webhook node. So basically, when I was explaining about app trigger, I mentioned that n8n has many apps, and all of these apps, or the majority of them, have triggers on their own. There are times you want to work with a particular app, but it is not inside n8n, and you want to trigger that app from n8n. So the way that you can do it is through webhooks. The webhook is like a URL that sits there and listens to events from another app. Yeah, so it has two URLs. It has a test URL, it has the production URL. And the test URL is basically used when you are testing the workflow. Like as I'm doing now, I'm not building any real workflow. It is not live yet. So I'm using the test URL. And if you are going to make the workflow go live, like you've published it, you're going to use the production URL basically. And now you have the HTTP method. It has get, delete, post, and whatever. So 90% of the time you're going to use the post method. So that's what we're going to talk about. And the post method is actually saying these other app or services that we're trying to talk to is going to post or is going to send data to our webhook. And then the path you can configure it, let's say form, for instance. As you're renaming the path, you see it has been updated to the URL. And then the authentication, we can leave it as none. These are basically securities that we can set for our webhooks. So let me just show you a real use case of this web. Let's say this is our contact form that we have on our website. And let's say normally when a customer sends in these details, we want to send them an automated email. We need to connect this to a webhook, and it is going to listen for this event. But let me just demonstrate it so that you understand. I'm using Tally form. You can use Google form or Jot form. So this is Tally form. So under integrations, under the form, you see we have webhooks. Let me just connect the webhook. It is asking us for an endpoint URL. So if you go to the webhook node, you are going to copy this URL. Just click it to copy it. And then you go to the endpoint and then you paste it. And then you click connect. So now our Tally form has been connected to our webhook. So if somebody sends in details here, the webhook is going to grab the details. So let me just listen for test event first. So I listen for test event here. And then let's say a customer is on our website and then they're filling their details. So you see, and then as the customer clicks submit, you see the webhook has picked up all of this information from the contact form. And then you see the first name, which is Alhaji, the last name, which is Sise, and the phone number, the email, or whatever. So it has grabbed this information. Now let's talk about the Google Sheet node. Used to get access to a particular Google Sheet, whether we want to get rows from that sheet or add or delete or update rows, whatever the case may be. First of all, you are going to you create and connect your credential. So also again, you can watch this video wherein I explain comprehensively how you can be able to create your Google account credentials for Google Sheets, Google Docs, Gmail, and Google Drive. Create your credential. So the operation currently is get rows, but there are different operations, different functions, whether it is append or update, append or clear, whatever. I think they are pretty descriptive. You can read the description to know what they do. So let's choose get rows. And then what you're going to do is choose the document that you want to get this rows from. And let's say I want to get rows from this job application document. If you click execute step, you're going to get, so let me just choose table, and you're going to get, you see, 23 rows, basically 22 items. So as I was saying, you can use get rows, or whether you want to delete rows, whether you want to add rows. Let me talk about append rows. It is very much important. A real use case is this. This is a podcast discovery pipeline. In other words, so this workflow actually research for podcasts in a particular niche, and then it gets details of the podcast host. And then if you want to reach out to them later, we can reach out to them. So if you are appending rows in a sheet, so basically the operation is going to be append row, of course. And then the document, you choose the document as usual. I choose job applications, responses, and then I'm going to choose the only sheet here, form response. It is asking you the mapping column mode. So we have two modes. We have to map column manually and to map them automatically. If you choose automatically, the AI is going to map it for you. It is going to determine the fields and then do the mapping for you. So for this particular use case, I recommend you choose map column manually, and then you manually do it. So as you can see, there are fields that you can click and drag. For instance, timestamp, you can say, okay, I want to put my date and the full name. Let's just use this host name, and then email. I include my contact details, cover letter and CV if I okay, I don't want this to be added. For instance, I can delete it, and I can delete this as well. And then if you click execute step, this is what it's going to show. You see, all of these have been appended. These are 20 items basically. So if you check the job applications sheet, you can see all of these details have been added to the Google Sheet. There were initially only these two. Now we have these other ones. Next to the Google Sheet node is the n8n data tables. So this is very similar to the Google Sheet node. As you can see, it has also resources, a row, the operation, whether it is get, whether it is delete or whatever. And then you can choose the table and then you map column or whatever. The differences between the n8n data tables and Google Sheet node is one, as you can see, there are no credentials that you need to create because this is a native node to n8n. And also it is 100 times faster than Google Sheet. So if the Google Sheet node takes, for instance, 1 second to run, the n8n data table is going to take 100 times lesser than that. If you want to create your data table, so you're going to go to your home screen or your dashboard, and then you click on data tables, and then you create data table. So you have two options. You can create it from scratch by manually entering the columns and the rows, or you can just import it from CSV. And then you add the file there, and then you update it whilst adding the name as well. So, but since we already have one, we're going to use it. So we already have like two data tables. So for instance, if you choose get row, just like Google Sheet, Google Sheet, so you choose the what you want to get rows on, let's say the guest, from the guest, and then any condition or just all conditions, whatever you're trying to get rows. And then you click execute step. You see you've received the 21 items from these n8n data tables. This one here, right here. This is what you've just requested for. So the same way, if you want, for instance, you want to append row, in this case it is called insert. The same thing, just as the Google Sheet. You see it has two column modes, whether you want to map it manually or automatically. And then you click and drag again the fields that you want to do, just as we did with the Google Sheet. It's the same thing. So now the edit field or set node. So this node takes rough data and then present it in a very structured way or a very cleaned way. Let's say I am fetching test event for this email. And then it has spit out all of this data. I only need a few of them, so I can add a set node and clean it properly. And then as you can see, let's say I need the ID. You can just click and drag. I also need the text. I can click and drag as well. And probably I need the subject. I can click and drag. Let's say I need also the date. I can click and drag. So if I execute step, so you see I have the ID, the text, the subject, and the date. So I can do with it whatever I want to do with it. So that is the most common use case of the set node. So now the split out node. Split out node, it takes a single list of items and then split it out to different or various items. If you don't understand, now imagine this. You have a big box of chocolate and then you open the big box of chocolate and then you take out all of the chocolate pieces in there. That is how the split out node works. So it takes this big list, one item, but a big list, and then it splits it out to various items. Let me just demonstrate it so that you understand. See this workflow here, basically it is a content idea generator. It generates content ideas. See one item here, but now it is content ideas, but it actually outputs 5 content ideas. 0, content ideas 1, 2, 3, and 4. So 5 content ideas. That is what it has output. So let's say you want to be writing scripts. You want to send this to another AI agent that is going to be writing the script, and another one that is going to be generating the image. If you output all of this content as one item, it will only create one script or it will only create one image. So that is not how you want to do it. So you want to split it into single items. So all of these content ideas are going to be single items. So that is where we are going to use this split out node. So let's connect it to the split out node. And then as you can see, which fields do we want to split out? It is the content ideas. This one here at the top, we click and drag it here, and no other fields. I hope everything is okay. And then if we execute the workflow, this split out node, so as you can see, it has split out to 5 items. So if you check the table, you see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So now we can be able to work on these items individually because now we have 5 items. The next node that we're going to talk about is the aggregate node. And the next node that we're going to talk about is the aggregate node. It is the direct opposite of the split out node. So the split out node has split out this one item into 5 items, if you connect it to the aggregate node, what it is going to do is it is going to aggregate them into one single item. So if you click execute step, you see now we have one item, just one item, and everything like in a list. So similarly to how it was initially. You see? Now we're going to talk about the merge node. So the merge node is not the same as the aggregate node because they are kind of similar. Now, the aggregate node actually takes a list of items from one source, like one branch, and then it puts them together. But the merge node take input from different branches and then merge them together. Those are different things. Let me just demonstrate it. So currently we have these data tables. We execute this workflow. You see we have one table with one row. It has its headers and all of these things. And then if we go to our Google Sheet node as well, let me just execute this Google Sheet node. You're going to see it also has its own headers and rows, right? It has row number, name, or whatever. So if you want to merge these two to make it as one, if you click on merge, so there are different options. There is append, there is combine, and there are these others, but you're mostly going to use append and combine. So let's just use append so we see what is going to happen. So the reason why I did not execute workflow from the merge is because if we did that, it's only going to run one workflow. And normally for the merge to work, both workflows has to run, or both branches has to run. So it takes both input at the same time. So after we've clicked it, the execute workflow. So what merge has done now is, you see, it adds, because we chose append, the mode, it has added the other one under the first one. That is why you are seeing undefined, because it doesn't have details for these other ones. So you see, so let's choose the other one, which is combine, and it is asking us we combine by which match in field, whatever. So just change this to all possible combinations. And if we click execute workflow again, and then check our merge, we're going to see it has merged it to one single row. So you see, we have now one name for allergy, the date, the email. So it has just put everything together and remove the fluffs. That is the merge node. So our very next node is the loop over items node. This is a node that takes a list of items and processes them one after the other, one by one, not all at once. So to demonstrate this so that you understand, let's say I have a loop over items node here. And then of course, you're going to delete this, replace me here and delete this. And let's say we add Google Sheet. A get rows in Google Sheet. It has two outputs. It has a loop output and a done output. So let me explain to you how it works. So this loop output is going to be connected to the node, whatever node that you're using in that instance. And then the output of this node is going to be into the input again of the loop of items node. So in other words, it's going to go into a circle until everything is complete. So let's configure this node from a list again, as usual. Let's say the guests and reach out. I have a list of guests that I want to reach out to for my podcast. And then let me just add a manual trigger. So this loop of items node. So the loop of items node, you don't need to configure it. So just leave the batch size as 1. It is okay like that. And then if you click execute workflow, what has happened? So as you can see, one item at a time. That is why you are seeing here one item. And then here is 21 items, and then the done is 21 items. So it means it's processed, even though it is very fast, but it processes these items one at a time until 21 items are completed. So in real use cases, let's say we want to send personalized emails to all of these podcasts. So what we can do, for instance, here is between these nodes at here, we can add an AI agent node that's going to write for us personalized email. I'm not going to configure it. I'm just showing you what is possible. This AI agent is going to write personalized email, and then we will add a Gmail node that's going to send a personalized email message to this podcast. So as you can see, let me drag it to the front so that you see it properly. So as you can see, we have the loop over items node that is looping over this Google Sheet, and then for every one item, the Google Sheet is going to send it to the AI agent, and then the AI agent is going to write a personalized email and then sends it to the send message or the Gmail node, and then the Gmail node is sending the email to them. It processes each item one after the other. That is the key thing here. So the next node is the wait node. It is telling your workflow to wait for a particular period of time based on, so it has after time interval, which can be set to seconds, minutes, or hours. So for instance, if it's okay, I want this workflow to wait for like 2 minutes before it continues to run. Or you can just set it for seconds or minutes or whatever. And or you can say at specific time, I want the workflow to wait for a specific time. Let's say until tomorrow, the 24th, and then you press OK. Or you can say on a webhook call, it depends. So it all depends on the particular use case. So one particular way that I used the wait node was this content factory that I created. So this is there are different phases to it, but this phase actually what it does is, so it creates videos. So as you can see, this is the node that creates the video, and then this node actually extracts the IDs. But I added the wait node to wait, because when this video is being created, it actually takes time. It doesn't happen all of a sudden because it is a video creation process, so it has to take time. So that is why I set it to 60 seconds. And then after 60 seconds, the workflow is going to continue, and so on and so forth. So if there was no wait node, then immediately this is going to be checking for it, and the workflow will probably error because this will not have been completed. So it is more applicable in situations where you have to create a video or you have to generate an image, and then you are generating them in batches, for instance, and then you want to wait for the one to complete before the other one starts. So that is it, basically how you use the wait node. Is very simple and straightforward. Now let's talk about the if node. So the if node, basically what it does is it splits a particular workflow into two different paths based on a certain conditions. It has a true output and a false output. Now let me just demonstrate this. Let's say we have this Google Sheet node and it is connected to this test demo sheet. So this test demo sheet has a status column that says completed and not completed. So let's add an if node. So let's say, for instance, we want to configure the if node to say it should only process completed items. So we can say status here under value 1, and then we say value 2 completed. So we are telling it only process or only take as two outputs or statuses that have been completed. So if we click execute step, so you see only one item has come out of the true branch, only one, and then the other one goes to the false branch, which is not completed. If all of the items will have been true, so for instance, if I update this sheet and then change this to completed, and I run this workflow again, I run this workflow and then run this. Now, two items have been run in the true branch because both of them have been completed, and then no item in the false branch. So that is how the if node works. So based on certain conditions, it is going to break the workflow into two different outputs, true and false. Switch node is very similar to the if node. The difference is you can add multiple paths, not only true and false. You can add as much path as you want. You can add 3, 4, 5, 10 or whatever, unlimited. You can see there are rules. You can add more rules as you want, as many as you want. And you see, even if you want to add 5, 6, 7 rules. Let's use the same example that we use for the if node. Let's say instead of an if node, we use a switch node because we have multiple paths. I've already added a few more rows to this particular sheet. So what we're going to do now is, first of all, let's run this row so we get new data. Okay, we've run it and then we have new data now. So now let's see when status is completed, you need to run it through this output, and then you can rename the output. For instance, currently it is saying 0, right? If you rename this output, you can say completed, for instance, and then you can add another rule. If status is started, and then you can rename the output as well, so started. So let's say you add another route that says when status is unknown, for instance, and then if you run this, you're still going to have, you see, completed as an item, and then started as an item, but the other item, let me rename it to unknown. So you see they have, but unknown does not have any item. That is why you see, if you see it from here, this has one, but unknown doesn't have any. So based on the conditions, it is going to output items in that particular route. So you can add 4, 5, 10 items, whatever amount of items you want to add. So that is the switch node. So now the code node, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, you mentioned that this is not for coders. I am not a coder. I don't have a technical background. How do you expect me to understand the code node? You don't have to be a programmer or a coder. The code node is a very much important node that you need to understand. It is basically a universal node. Universal in the sense, I have talked about a lot of nodes. I have talked about switch, if, wait, loop, merge, aggregate, split out, all of these nodes. And the cool thing about the code node is it can do almost everything that all of these other nodes can do. This is a workflow that finds guests online that have podcasts. It collects their information, their guest information, their name, the name of their podcast. When the AI has done the research, it just outputs this big block of text that has different information in it. So it has the podcast name, the host name, contact method, and other important information. But this is a big block of text, and now we can use this code node to clean it and structure it properly. As you can see, it has a huge code, but I don't know how to write this code. And then let's say I don't have this code. And what you can do for you to be able to write this code here, you can either take a screenshot of this screen, or you can just come here and download this workflow. That is what I recommend. And then you can go to Claude or ChatGPT. So I recommend Claude. You can go to Claude and then you upload this particular document here, this particular file, which is this workflow. And then you tell it what you want. So you can say, for instance, I want a JavaScript code for the pass podcast result code node. So you see, so it has created the code for me. I just have to copy the code. So you're going to go into your workflow here and just copy everything and paste. And then if you execute workflow, so you see, if you use a table, you're going to see all of these 20 items. So you see, I don't even know how to code, but Claude Code has written the code for me very simply, and then I've used it to output these 20 items. As simple as it is. I'm currently using a self-hosted version via Hostinger to host my n8n. So if you're using the cloud version, it is more simple, or it is simpler to use it. In here, you're going to see a tab that says Ask AI, and then if you click Ask AI, you're going to tell it what you want. It is going to do this for you without you even sending it to Claude Code or ChatGPT. So the HTTP request node. This node, it lets n8n communicate with another app that does not have a native node in n8n. In other words, there are different apps in n8n, and you may want to communicate with another app, but that app is not part of the n8n native app. So you will use the HTTP request node to communicate to that app. n8n is not like Zapier. Zapier has a ton of integrations comparing to n8n. So that is why you make use of this HTTP request node for. So as you can see, this is the HTTP request. And let's say I want to use a service called API Ninja. So API Ninja has a ton of APIs. So you're going to type API Ninja API documentation. So whatever service that you want to make use of their API, you're going to write the name of the service and then you say API documentation. That is going to help you. Yes, let's click this first link. And then I've already created an account with API Ninja. So I click APIs. And then there are different APIs that they have. So I want to make use of this quotes API. But one thing I want to say is, if you know how to create this connection in API Ninja or any other API, you are probably going to be able to create it on any other API. But the truth is, they are not the same. All API documentations are different because these are different companies, different services. So they are going to document their APIs differently. But it is just the same logic and similar processes. And so we are going to make use of this quotes API, which says the quotes API provides tens of thousands of carefully curated aphoristic quotes from famous people throughout history. It says it is a GET request. So that means this has to be a GET request. So it is already a GET request. And then this is the link. You copy the link and then you paste this link. And then the authentication. So you go through this documentation and then you have to fill in all of these things for yourself based on the documentation. But a very easy way that you can be able to do all of this is through this call. So you're going to look for this call and then you copy this call command. You copy it, click to copy. And then if you go here, let me just delete everything. You say import call and then you paste the call command and then you click import. It is going to automatically fill all of the details for you. See? Everything has been filled, so you don't need to fill them manually. It's going to take time and it is prone to errors. So you click execute step. So you see it has we have some data. So you see a quote: the road to success begins with knowing what you need to know and why. It is by the author Savannah China or whatever. So this is one use case of how you can use the HTTP request node. So whenever you want to use an app that is not part of n8n, just use the HTTP request node to connect to it. The next node is the information extractor node. So this node is basically like a set node, but with AI capabilities. Let me just demonstrate so that you understand. So now, if you look at this workflow, let's say it is an edit field node, right? It has some lead information here, which is a big block of text that has a subject. It is an email basically. It has a subject, it has the message, which has a couple of information like the name of the person sending the message, the name of their company, address, email, and a bunch of other information, all in a big block of text. But let's say we want to clean up this data. We only want certain information, so we can use the information extractor node. Which field we want to, we want this field, and then we click and drag, and then we can add our attributes. So for instance, we want the company name. We want the company name, and then it is a string, the name of the company, and then it is required. The reason why we are saying it is required is if we don't make it required, the AI might leave it out. It's not certain that it's going to leave it out, but it might leave it out. But if we make it required, it is going to, the AI is going to find it. Even if it doesn't find it, it will output the field as company name and null or null or whatever. And then the next thing that we want is let's say the address of the company, for instance, the address of the company, and then required again. And finally, let's just say I need to know the purpose of why they are contacting me. So this is also required. And then if I execute this step, sorry, I have not configured it properly. It has to have an AI model because it has to think. Let's just use OpenAI. You can disable this response to API for now. And then let's just run it again. As you can see from this big block of text with a lot of information, very scattered and messy, we have collected the information that we want, which is the company name, the company address, and the purpose of the why they are sending us a message. So you see, so we can be able to make decisions from this instead of a big block of messy, unstructured text. That is what the information extractor node is going to do for you. I almost forgot, you have to configure this OpenAI chat model. First of all, you have to connect your credential. It's very simple. So you have to create new credential, and then all you need is your API key. What you're going to do is you're going to go to platform.openai.com, and then once you go to platform.openai.com, create an account, and then you go to API keys here, and then you create a new key, and then you name it whatever name you want to name it, like this, and then you create secret key. It is going to give you the API key that you're going to paste here on the API keys. That is it. Even though it is not free, it is something that you pay for. That is why if you just paste it here, it is not going to work unless you add your billing information. If you don't add your billing information, it's not going to work. So you will have to click this settings here, and then you go to billing, and then you add, currently I have $2.86. You add like $5 minimum to be able to use that API. So that is the information extractor node. So our last node, which is the AI agent node. So an AI agent is like a digital employee that takes inputs, thinks, and can make decisions on its own. And it has access to other tools. This is an AI agent. It has a chat model, it has a memory, and then it has tools. Here, so this is the AI agent. So when you're configuring it, the first thing that you're going to add is the chat model. So the chat model allows the AI to be able to think. So if it receives an inquiry, it will have the ability to be able to think and make decisions. You use response API, you check it off for now. And that's how you've configured your OpenAI chat model. And then for the memory, you can just choose simple memory. And then without any tool for now, let's just connect it to a chat model to be able to chat with it. A chat trigger, sorry. Like this. And then we say hi. It will be able to respond to us. So you see, say hi, how can I assist you today? Whatever. So what makes this AI agent very capable and valuable is the fact that it has access to tools. So for instance, I can be able to add my Gmail tool so that it sends a Gmail message. So for instance, I can say send message, and then I let this defined by AI and the subject by AI, and I want it to be text instead. then the message also by AI. Let me just toggle this off. The append n8n attribution, let me just turn it off so it doesn't say this message was sent by n8n. So if I send message to this agent, say, hi, send an email to test@example.com telling them that you just want to test your servers. Then I click send. So as you can see, the agent is working. It has sent the email. And then if you check my email inbox, so you see under test, under sent emails, you can see it here, testing servers. So it decides on the subject. And then as you can see the email, I just want to test my servers. And then of course it is a fake address. So it says address was not found. So I was talking about my personal assistant agent. So if you could remember, when I tell the personal assistant to send, or sorry, to check my calendar, it automatically uses the calendar agent. I did not tell it what to do. I did not say check the calendar agent. I just tell it to get my calendar for me. So it uses the appropriate tool to get my calendar events. So that is what an AI agent can do. It can take input, make decision on its own, and then it has access to tools and all. So guys, that is it. These 18 nodes are going to help you build a very strong foundation with n8n. If you understand and master these 18 nodes, you're going to almost be able to build any kind of workflow that you want to build, because these are the building blocks. These are the core nodes that you use to build workflows in n8n.